podcast. I'm your host, David.
And I'm your co-host, also David, David's dad.
All right, welcome everybody to season 4 of The Bull and the Cub. Lots of excitement for season 4, lots of new things. We have the same goal, which is to educate our listeners about business and investment, but a lot of new things, new platform. We're on video now. We've got an updated logo. We have shirts, so we feel like we've made it. We have a new style this season too, where we're going to be having guests this season. We're calling it Journeys, where we're going to have guests and focus on meeting with investors, financial advisors, financial experts, business owners, the whole gamut. And we want to learn from everybody about what their personal journey is to get where they're at today, and along the way, learn about their investment strategies. We've got a very exciting guest here, Tom Bernard, who's will give us into our background. But when I read his book, the Index of America, I was really excited to have you as our first guest for season 4 because my son David, co-host, has been in my ear for years that the S&P 500 is the way to go with investing, and so 14 hours since I think he was 12, he's been in my ear on this. So when I saw your book, I said, "Oh my gosh, I've got to introduce Tom to David." Because both, David's been singing this praise as well. So thanks for joining us, Tom.
Oh, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah. All right, David, let's give him some questions to get things going.
Before we get into your book, let's talk a bit about you. Tell us a bit about your background.
Sure, happy to. So, born and raised in California, came up here to the Bay Area for college, and ended up kind of getting into investing during college. My parents split up, and when I was in college, and that put a wrench in my financial condition, and so I had to get smart real fast, get jobs, figure out how to work with money, grow money, etc. And so, really starting from about 20 to now, I've been really interested in investing and what I can do to kind of grow wealth over time. So I've had decades of experience and mistakes behind me, and so I didn't start out looking at 12 or 14 thinking the S&P 500 was the way to go. I came up through the dot-com bubble and the dot-com burst, and it was incredibly exciting and also incredibly terrifying and disappointing at times. And so have made a lot of mistakes, done many wrong things, and ultimately came to the conclusion that the S&P 500 was the way to go for me in terms of peace of mind and giving me some time back to do other things, because I was spending a lot of time on investing, and this has given me a lot of my time back.
We get too, before you ask the next one, Dave, we get a lot of young people who want to know the path in terms of getting into finance, and some people get a economics degree, some get a business degree. What was your educational path?
Yeah, sure. So I went to Cal and got an undergraduate degree in environmental economics. And so that is the economics of things like land and forests and fisheries. And out of college, I got a job in real estate. That's what it translates to. So I got a job valuing commercial real estate in downtown Los Angeles for a big commercial firm, and then over to a consulting firm doing valuations for portfolios of real property and businesses ultimately. And I've really just stayed in kind of the public accounting consulting realm for my entire career, helping corporations and high net worth individuals valuing their property.
Oh, great. So you've got background in
And
two of the greatest things in
yeah,
investing, real estate and S&P.
yeah, and then I went on to get some additional education, got a master's in taxation, and then a master's in business as well. So just kept kind of um, refining and honing my skills.
Um,
Very nice. Let's talk about your book, The Index of America. Tell our listeners some main takeaways from that book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Index of America is really about the S&P 500, and I came to write the book because I've got a couple kids that are now in college that I took through investing and trying to set them up on a program to grow their wealth over time, and they're very curious, which is great. And I've been advocating the S&P 500 for pretty much their entire lives, and they're always asking why, and so over time I would clip little articles and kind of sound bites from podcasts and just think after a few decades, I had a lot of information. I thought, wow, you know what, this would probably be enough information to make into a book. And so, as a result, I was able to answer some of their questions, but also provide something that they could come back to, or other people could come back to over time, especially when things get dicey. Right? Everyone's really comfortable with the markets going up, and I think last year it hit new highs, something like 25 or 30 times. It's already hit a bunch of new highs this year. But there are years when it doesn't hit any new highs. And let me tell you, those years can be really, really scary. And understanding how it works and that it has worked consistently over many, many decades. My goal there is to give people comfort and stay in the course. Really, the objective is to stay invested. It's easy to get invested when things are going well and you're feeling good, but staying invested when things aren't going well and you're scared and all you want to do is sell everything and go to cash, right? And hide under a pillow. Those can be really trying times. And my objective here with the book is to make sure that people can get comfortable understanding how it works so that they can hold on through the trying times.
That's really good advice, especially I think for this generation, because what I've seen is there's a lot of more volatility now where you see, people are often even now expecting to have mass returns quickly. And then if it
Yeah.
doesn't happen or you lose that, there's going to even be more, I think, anxiety for people. And so that comfort is the key that you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, the whipsaw. I mean, you'll have it up and down days, a few percent, but then even when it crashes or goes down 10, 15, 20%, it comes right back up in like 6 months. So that's in the scheme of things, that's a relatively short period of time, right? It's when it's been down 20 or 30% and just sits there for years. That's the part where it gets really hard to kind of hang on.
Yeah. About the S&P, what are some do you have any examples of some companies in the S&P? And if some, how someone who is new to the stock market, who wanted to start investing in the S&P, how would they do that?
Yeah, so let's just start with the big picture of the S&P. What is it? So S&P 500 stands for the Standard and Poor's 500, and the goal there is to select 500 stocks that represent at least 80% of the overall total US market. So the US market has actually been shrinking in terms of the number of stocks. So it's now less than 4,000 stocks in the US make up the US stock market. And those 500 right now represent well over 80, probably close to 90% of the actual value in the market. With SpaceX coming on, it's probably a little less now, but more than 80%. And what's happened is over time, the company has refined its methodology. So it's a kind of a capitalization weighted index. And so the more valuable the company is, the larger the chunk of the index it makes up, right? And what happened is in the late 90s, around 1999, they decided to apply the global industry classification system. So now they have 11 sectors, and they go and they pick the most valuable companies in those 11 sectors. So it's not just the most valuable companies like 1 to 500. They want to make sure that they have kind of the best and the brightest of the companies in each of the sectors. And so even right now, information technology communications is doing really well, but who knows, in 10 years, it might be healthcare or it might be financials. And the idea that you're owning those companies now and building up shares in those companies through your S&P 500 while they're low, right, will yield dividends and help with growth later on should those sectors come into play. So right now, like NVIDIA is multi-trillion-dollar company, but you owned NVIDIA through the S&P 500 in 2010 and in 2015. And there's a little bit of shares ultimately have become very valuable and helped the overall index return just be phenomenal. And I think in the 2020s, it's over 15% a year. One of the advisors that helped me with the book, Ken Howard Silverblatt, worked at the S&P 500 for almost 50 years, and so he marked it the day he started and the day he ended. And over his almost 50-year tenure, the total return, so the combination of just the price and then also the dividends that's being reinvested, was over 12% annually. So that's pretty powerful stuff, especially if you start at a young age like yourself and just let the compounding do the work.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And that's that strength of the S&P from its flexibility and changing with the economy as the world changes, the S&P changes, right? I thought there was a quote in your book, which I thought was fascinating. One way to think about it is if you're running with a group of people and faster, fresher people join the group, they will push the pace, causing the slower runners to drop, making the overall group faster. And that was a great
Yeah.
analogy for what's happening with the S&P and why to invest in it, because it's going to constantly be dropping off the slow runners, picking up the fast ones, and as a whole, it's going to be moving at a faster speed, which is a fantastic analogy.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens is that everyone's aware of is the hurdle to get in, the size, right? So right now it's about 22.7 billion. So the company has to be valued that much. But that has grown over time. Just a few years ago, it was like 10 or 15. And so as the hurdle increases, the companies in order to get in have to be able to pass that hurdle. But the companies that were already in, they might be at 15 or 16 or 17. They don't automatically get kicked out. But over time, what will happen is those are the companies that are on the radar of the index committee. So that's one of the really important things is it's not purely rules based. There's actually a group of folks that are really invested and highly skilled in investing that are picking the specific companies that go in and that come out. So they kind of, and over time, they've done a really good job of picking the ones that are on the up, literally coming up. There might not be going gangbusters at the moment, but they see them. They are emerging leaders, and then they kind of cycle out the ones that are on their way down, right? And so some of the smaller ones, they're not that there's anything wrong with them, but they're going to get kicked out and they'll go down to the medium cap or the small cap index, and the new ones will come in as they're moving up and getting larger in size.
Perfect.
All right. That's very interesting. Now about some very futuristic stuff. For an IPO update, what are your thoughts on the S&P, OpenAI, and Anthropic?
Anthropic.
Anthropic and SpaceX and all those guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, great question. So the index committee can change its rules, and they have a process where they can change their rules. That they say, okay, this is what we want to do, and we're going to put it out for consultation. And so they actually had a consultation in May, ended I think in early June, where they were going to do a couple things. One is they were thinking about changing the seasoning period. So right now, a company from the day it goes public to the day it can be included has to be public for 12 months. They were thinking about um, they were thinking about shortening that to 6 months. Okay. The other thing they were doing was changing their profitability hurdle. The profitability hurdle is basically you have to have 4 quarters of reporting, and that total net profit must be a net profit over those 4 quarters. So they can lose money Q1, Q2, Q3, and if they make a bunch of money Q4 that kind of wipes out all those losses, they're eligible to be put in. Now that's just eligibility. The index committee still has to decide to put them in. So they were contemplating doing two things: changing the 12 months to 6 months, and then eliminating altogether the profitability requirement for what they called the mega cap companies. And this was going to be a company that would automatically or be valued at one of the largest 100 or most valuable companies in the US. So all of those would be eligible then: Anthropic, SpaceX, and OpenAI. Now, after that consultation, S&P decided not to change their methodology. So right now, those are not likely to be included until they meet those those hurdles in terms of the overall seasoning period and then the profitability period.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because it's almost like you have these kind of big name companies coming. Do we relax the rules to let them in, or do we stay true to our principles and say, okay, let's let you guys into the market. Let's just you establish some revenue history, and then we'll let you in if you meet our criteria. That's really fascinating. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what it really does it really emphasizes that the index. So people say there's the whole debate passive versus active, right? And the idea is that the brokerages, the vanguards, or the other providers that mirror the index, they just follow the rules in the sense that they just follow whatever the index owns. But the index itself is active and actively forming their rules to make decisions to allow companies to come in and out, right? And so I like to call the S&P 500 kind of the stealth active manager, right? The index committee is your active manager, and you're getting it at an incredibly low cost. And one of the primary benefits of this is you're able to capture the market or the returns of the market at such a low cost that everyday investors are really much better off as a result of the index funds. The first one that was started tracked the S&P 500, Jack Bogle and Vanguard, and VOO is the ETF that everybody knows and loves. And it actually just surpassed $1 trillion in total assets. That one ETF has $1 trillion in assets, and all it does is track the S&P 500.
Amazing. That says it all.
Yeah.
If you were in high school today, what would you do differently? How would you start investing?
Wow. Okay. Well, start early, start often. So fortunately in high school, I had a job, and I had a lot of fun. But one of the things I would do is I would start investing earlier. I probably started about when I was 20, and I went straight into stocks, and we won't get into too many details, but little small OTC over the counter stocks that somebody whispers in your ear, oh, this is going to go up, and it's 25 cents, and it goes to 30 cents, and then it goes to 15 cents, right? And so I've done done all that. But I mean, really, so I have um, two kids that are now in college, but they started investing in high school, and so we opened a Roth IRA for them at Vanguard, and we invested. They have jobs, so they have earned income, and we take some of their earned income and we invest it in the S&P 500, and so that's what they're doing, and that's what I would do.
Very nice. One last uh, big question. How would, if someone had $10,000 to start investing, how do you think they should start?
That's a really good question, and one of the things. So as much as I love investing, people routinely underestimate how emotional it can be and the behavioral aspect of it. And so I like to say that it's kind of like investing is like a muscle that you have to build up over time, right? If you just go in and you just try and lift really heavy in the gym, you might hurt yourself, right? Because your muscles aren't used to it. So I recommend people invest in whatever they're comfortable with. Yes, you might get $10,000, but all of a sudden being able to put $10,000 into the market might not be comfortable for you. Someone might say, okay, well, yeah, I've got 10,000, but maybe I'm only willing to put 3,000 in. So really going at your own pace is really important. Doing what's comfortable for you. And if people say, "Oh, I'm comfortable. I'm willing to go all in today," then my recommendation is 50-50. Okay, great. Put 50% in the S&P 500 and keep 50% in cash. And just wait, right? Like just ride it out for 6 months. And if you want to put some more in after 6 months, put some more in, right? But there is no one that can educate you or tell you what it feels like to have money that you worked hard for seemingly disappear when the market goes down, right? So if you have $10,000 today and you put it in and the market goes down 10% and now you have $9,000, right? You don't necessarily know how you're going to react until it happens to you, and that's really important to figure that out. And so I recommend go slow. All of the value, or the majority of the value, happens via compounding over time, right? So the objective is to get in and then consistently invest and stay invested. So making sure that you take a little bit of time now to do it right, and in a way that you're comfortable, is much better. You're going to be much better off than putting it in, having something happen, get scared, and then jumping out, right? You don't want to be jumping in and jumping out. One of the things um, that just really hits home for me in terms of the total overall value that has been created by the U.S. economy and in the S&P 500 over time is the S&P 500 now. I don't know, it's around 7,500, right? It was that number, 7,500, when the first day it started trading in 1957, was at 44. Okay, so you have 1957, 44, 2026, 7,500. How can you lose money when something goes from 44 to 7,500? You don't lose money by holding it. You lose money by jumping in and jumping out, because it hasn't been a straight line. It's gone up, it's gone down. And
Right.
so that staying the course and staying invested is really important.
Yeah, and that doesn't, let me piggyback on David's question. Does that change depending on your age? Like, I mean, when you kind of talk about investing in the stock market, do some folks say, "Great, I'm listening to this. I'm 18 years old, or I'm 25 years old, and I've got, I'm working and I'm getting a steady income and I've got some extra money I want to invest." And some people go, "Hey, I'm 60. I've never touched the stock market, but I've got money now that I've saved. It's just sitting in the bank earning terrible interest. What should I do with it?" It's still the same.
Well, this is near and dear to my heart. I have a colleague in her 60s, and um, deathly afraid of investing, right? And deathly, and so risk tolerance is very real. And as you get older, you now have a lot of money, right? And so these moves are very, very um, if you let your emotions take over, they can be very, very risky to your overall portfolio. And so once again, just take small steps. Okay, if you've never been invested and you want to start, great, go from 0% to maybe 20%. Right, like see how that goes and watch that go up and down. And then if you want to get a little bit more in, great. But don't think, okay, I've seen SpaceX double in a day. and now I want to kind of get into it. Like I think that's a recipe for disaster, because the reason that they were not invested, that's still there more than likely, right? It's not, and whatever's causing them to, like, whatever they feel like they're missing might be fleeting. So you just have to go be very, very cautious. And for people that are starting, the most aggressive I'd recommend, as I mentioned, is 50% just to get in there. And if you're older, I'd say even a smaller percent, because you really want to pressure test your comfort with it, right? Because like I said, it's a muscle that will, if you invest, the longer you're invested, the more comfortable you're going to be, the more ups and downs you'll see, etc. But having lived through the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust and 2008 and COVID, I can tell you like it has an impact on you. And over time, as you grow up, your perspective on risk will change, right? Your perspective as an 18-year-old is much different than your perspective as a 38-year-old or a 58-year-old, right? Like it will change over time. And I appreciate all the asset allocation um, math that's there, but there is a very, very large emotional aspect to it. So one of the books that I really recommend is called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's a great book to read, and it shares, a lot of investing stories without the numbers, right? That just get kind of into the psychology of it. And I think it's really important for people to understand that is a very large aspect of investing.
Such good advice for our listeners. All right. Well, David, tell them how the rapid fire, if you're ready for rapid fire, David, tell them how the rapid fire.
All right.
Basically, how rapid fire is gonna go. I'm gonna ask you some like few word answer questions that is like gonna be very quick on you. So it just
Okay.
like has like a general idea in your response.
Fair. Okay.
Okay, so let's get started. Stocks, real estate, or both?
Both.
One word for the market right now.
Hot.
Best place for trusted stock market news.
Bloomberg. Big Bloomberg guy.
Is it ever too late to start investing?
Never.
Most overhyped stock sector right now.
SpaceX.
Most underrated stock sector right now.
Oh, I don't follow individual stocks, so that much, so I don't have a good answer.
One stock you wish you never sold.
Apple.
Oh, good one. All right. I'm going to add one more. Well, because our listeners, I think a lot of our listeners are newbies to investing,
Sure.
and they want to know okay, I'm ready to start investing. What do I do in terms of what app do I download? What site do I go to? There's all
Yeah.
commercials and different things. What's your favorite one for somebody who's new that's a little easy to maneuver?
Okay, so keep in mind, my kids are in college, so I don't necessarily know if I'm the best to answer the question, but I'm a big fan of Vanguard and Fidelity. But I can tell you, my son's opened a Robinhood account, right? But the the larger ones, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, have been great. And if you're just buying an S&P 500, you're opening an IRA or Roth IRA, I would still stick with those. But for the younger folks that are trying a variety of things, and I absolutely encourage experimentation and trying and learning your own lessons, right? There's no better way to do it, to learn, than to kind of go through the process. Just make sure you're setting aside a portion in kind of the safer, more tried and true investments, right? So I like to say, if you're going to have your fun money, great. That would be a smaller percentage, 10%, 15%. But the vast majority of your money should be in more stable, constant growth items like the S&P 500.
Great advice. Any other questions for Tom, our guest, Dave?
No, that's all. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you
Oh,
for your time. I mean, the book was phenomenal. I loved it. I got the history of the S&P and really why it's, a strong investment, the Index of America, Tom Bernard. What a treat for us for our first guest as we start our journeys season 4. So thank you so much, Tom, for joining us.
yeah. Thank you both for having me. It's been great.
We'll see y'all next week. Bye.